Welcome, everybody. I am Pete Oliver Kruger, and here with Arnold Sherman, and we are going to kick off the Minotaur Book Club here, sponsored in part by the Maryland Forward Party and the Sociological Imagination Group. We are doing part 2 for We the People, a book by Jill Lepore about the Constitution. We are at various different states, and I think in getting through and reading the book, I'm at 95% myself. And so find out where everybody else is, how far through, but you do not need to be all the way through the book in order to be part of this conversation. And one of the thoughts we thought we might do is to hold a constitutional convention. So that's sort of the frame. If we want to ditch it, we can get into that. But I think this would be kind of fascinating. I was inspired by watching or reading about the various different groups throughout time who had called a constitutional convention, albeit most of them non-binding. Some of them, yes, some of them not. And just the things that they came up with and the problems that they found. And it would be a great way to get into this. And since Maryland Forward Party, we love talking about problems, that would give us a chance to do that. And so I'm proposing that we hold this constitutional convention using prioritized problems formats to get into that. And it's also in line with the myth of the Minotaur, where Arnie, you tell the story better than I do. Do you want to give the introduction for the video? Oh, lost your audio.
Yep. Can't hear you.
It was working perfectly great. All right. Well, he'll work on that, and so I'll say. So the story of the Minotaur was that King Minos wanted something to foment his rule and get people to listen to him, and so he had went to I think it was Poseidon and asked for the favor of the gods, to go behind him, and so they sent him this bull. And that presented, I think it was like a white bull, and it was glorious. And King Minos took one look at it and said, "That's a really good bull. I don't want to make you I want this for myself." And so proceeded to do that. And so then do you have the audio there? Here we go.
Hear me?
Yes,
Yep.
got you now.
Yeah, I got to get rid of.
Yep. And so Poseidon was beside himself in this, and it was completely inappropriate use of the gifts of the gods for personal gain, and so in retribution he made King Midas's wife fall in love with the bull that produced the Minotaur, and then they had to build a labyrinth in order to keep keep the Minotaur enclosed, but all of this is sort of this myth about what happens when we use public goods for personal gain, and so that's the sort of the inspiration behind this. How are we really serving the people, the citizens? And so with that frame in mind, anything I missed that you want to add in, Arnie? I just got your audio.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. Yes, I don't know how that happened. No, yeah, that's it's throughout history. It's and we'll see it in the founding argument between the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists appear again as it appears throughout history, particularly in the debate between Thomas Paine, who says that the government should speak for the people, and James Madison, Hamilton, and others who said that we need to suppress the people and beware of the tyranny of the majority. So the Minotaur may even be reformed in today's world. Who knows?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. So one of the things that
time to put him in the labyrinth.
Yes, trying to put them in the labyrinth. Create some checks and balances, some things to keep them from running amok at our expense. So, one of the things that we like to do with Maryland Forward Party is talk about what problems are we solving. Because often what we can find is that people disagree very strongly and sometimes violently about the solutions that, I want this to be the law, I want this thing to happen. And then when you ask them, well, why do you want that to happen? They'll say, well, because this is happening and that's wrong. And the other person will say, on the other side will say, well, yeah, I totally agree with that. That's why I want to do solution B. And you say, well, okay, so tell me more about solution B. Why do you want solution B instead of solution A? It's like, oh, well, because there is this problem that is causing me to want to choose solution B. And the other person behind solution A is like, I agree, we should totally solve that. And the way to solve that is solution A. And so they agree on what problems need to be solved, but they may disagree on the priority of the problems. And so then they will just fight each other, and then nothing gets done to actually solve the problems, and the problems continue going. And so the core of one of the things we're looking at is really focus on this problem-solving approach, identifying and knowing what the problems are. And so so we have this format of being able to propose a problem, we put it on a list, and then we can vote for, moving it up or down, making some edits or adjustments to it. And through this process that we find that focusing on the problems helps us to design much better solutions. So that is the proposal for tonight. So as I call this debate to order on a constitutional convention, to look at what we have learned through We the People, or from our own, knowledge and other things that we bring to the page. I would ask for what are some of the problems that you see with the Constitution that we should change? What are some of the problems that we see in our society that we think maybe the Constitution could help us to solve if it operated in a different way? But that is that's the premise for the discussion tonight. And I'll keep track of the conversation here on the slides as we go through and look at how we all feel about the Constitution now that we've heard a lot more about how it was built, how it was amended, how it stopped being amended, and how it's been treated in the courts. All right, we'll move us over to this view here.
So I don't know how to formulate this really as a problem, because I have to admit, it's been a little while. I finished the books a time ago, and I had hoped to get some time to go back. And my mind is sometimes like a sieve, but the whole thing, I think that just the conflict about how they created Article 5 to be able to go through these amendments, right? Yet they made it so difficult to jump through the hoops to make those amendments that ultimately we've had to come up with different ways, such as going through the judiciary, right, to be able to resolve our problem. So I don't know if that's really a problem in and of itself, but that to me just struck me as just irrational in some ways, right? Like, we created the Constitution to do this thing, and we have this article that's going to help us create it as a living document and constantly amend it, but then that process doesn't really work.
I like that.
Thank you, Arnie.
Let me throw in a second one,
Yeah.
which is a little bit related after Pete gets captured.
Is this a good phrasing there, Laura, for what I heard you say?
I think that sums up basically what I'm saying. We created a process to make those types of amendments, but then it doesn't really work for us. So we're trying to find other ways to do it that aren't always successful either, but
Okay, this is structural, functional, and related to Laura's proposition, the Constitution needs to be restructured. It was set up to empower
Uh-oh.
as and in doing ability of the tyranny of the majority. And I would link that to the proposition by some of the founders that we should revisit the Constitution every 15 years or every generation as a living document in the context of the claim ever since Bork and others that the Constitution is a living document. Because if the Constitution is a living document, and interpretation of the Constitution is limited to the intent of the founders, then the intent of the founders in people that exclude
Uh-oh.
pretty.
Arnie, we keep losing you.
Yeah, you're dropping in and out at certain parts.
Okay, if I sit closer, will that help?
Don't know. Well, we can find out. It seemed like it was an internet-based thing, but
Yeah.
maybe it wasn't. So, but let's find out.
It could be.
We caught most of it, but yeah, you were dropping in and out.
So I think this is what I heard. So let me write this down and then see. Which is I think what you're proposing is that problem with the Constitution is original intent itself. In that even the writers of the Constitution proposed revisiting it with each generation so that the views of say like the new generation are taken into account.
And opposed to that is the modern claim that we need to read the Constitution, taking into account the intent of the founders. And I would argue that the founders were biased against the unpropertied, against the indigenous, against the enslaved, and against women. And so we the people is limited to white males primarily. And that's why we need to restructure the Constitution, because we could that led to the reaction to Shays' Rebellion, which was the Alien and Sedition Act, which is being used against us in the streets of America today.
Yeah, that's a problem statement in and of itself.
Yep. Thanks, Arnie. Those are good.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
All right, so I'm going to ask this question. We got 3 on the board here. What is the bigger problem?
That's up to you, Brandon.
I think he's still pulling the chicken out of the oven.
Sorry, I'm kind of back. I couldn't see. Hold on. Give me a minute. I couldn't see Pete's. Okay, gotcha. The amount of process so complexity you're doing.
Actually, this is good because it's just like the real world. We've got 2 different propositions, four people voting. One's a moderator that probably shouldn't vote except to break a tie, and then it's left up to one person who can filibuster.
Got Barbara on there too, so.
Oh, yeah.
We got an odd number, so we'll do like some votings in the chat.
Yeah.
But let's start at so who wants to make a proposal of why you think one of these 3 is the biggest problem?
Yeah,
Go for it, Brandon.
sorry. Yeah, I mean, if you're throwing them my way, I know we're going to take turns here. To me, 2 and 3 seem tied together in a way, because they're going back to the context of when the Constitution was written, I would propose two as the bigger problem. Original intent and originalism. I definitely have problems with that. I feel like as years go on, the further and further away we get from the original writing of the Constitution and revisiting what the framers thought, it seems less meaningful as time goes on. I mean, if this country is around in 1,000 years, are we still going to be worrying that much about the original intent of the framers from over 1,000 years ago? So, I mean, again, maybe that was a little bit hyperbolic, but yes, I definitely think original intent I would say, is a bigger problem.
All right, so I'm going to use our debate test criteria.
Let me
Just
make
to see. Before we do the crosstalk, I gotta clarify with Brandon for his position. So by putting it in number one, you're saying that even if it is just as difficult to amend, and we probably won't be able to amend it except once in 100 years, and even though it's built with bias, you believe that if we can solve the problem of original intent and find a way to revisit it with each generation, that is more important for us to tackle and get that done.
Okay, good points.
I have a suggestion. The process by which we can solve the problem of getting away from original intent and revisiting it every generation is through the amendment process. And since there's only two ideas on the board, and since they're both related, and since we have time, I don't see why we can't do both of them.
Well, as we say in the rules for prioritized problems, ideally we are going to solve all these problems at the same time. But if we can't, and we have to sacrifice one, which one gets sacrificed?
Oh, okay, gotcha.
And those are the rules of the debate.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I see your point. I mean,
I'm not making a point. I am using the rules of the debate in order to clarify the order.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Now I can hop in and make a point, which I would say is that there were a lot of people who tried to use the amendment process and really wanted to submit amendments that didn't pass so that they could preserve original intent and preserve bias. So I would say that the amendment process, from my point of view, putting in my perspective here, is actually less important than combating this idea that we should live somehow the way that we did 250 years ago.
Yeah, I would agree too. And when Brandon made that point, I almost think like the numbers 2 and 3 are almost symptomatic of what the original intent, right? Like that sort of more of almost a root cause. And then these other things just sort of occurred out of that.
Yeah. So as moderator, I'm asking for the clarification, Brandon. And if you do agree with that, but actually as a participant in the debate, I do agree with your positioning that it is more important than amendment.
So can you can you ask for can you specify the clarification again, what you need from me in this?
If you are good with the order, the clarification is on the order. And the rule of the debate is, the test of the debate is that if we only got to do one and we didn't get to do all three, is fixing original intent the best thing to spend our time on?
So let's see. Yeah, now I think I've confused myself, because I think my problem with original intent is the deference to it. But if getting away from it means that we need to make the amendment process easier, so let's keep it there. I think I need to think about it more if it comes back to me. But I'm happy to hear what other people have to say.
Okay.
Hey,
All right.
Can I tell a quick story?
Sure.
Okay, it's the end of the baseball season, and the three umpires are getting together, having a beer, and talking about the season. And the young guy is so enthusiastic. He says, "I love this game. This is the best job in the world. I love baseball. I get to sit behind the plate. I get to see it all, and I get to call them as they are." The second ump is a little bit older, a little bit more experienced. He said, "Listen, son, sometimes the dust gets in your eyes. Sometimes the sun is in the wrong position. Sometimes you just can't see them as they are. You do the best you can, and you call them as you see them." The third umpire is getting ready to retire. He says, "You kids, they ain't nothing till I call them."
Yep.
That's a good one, Arnie. I like that one.
I think
that speaks to the fact that some of our jurists very, very clearly have their own agendas that they bring to their decisions, including the idea of original intent, which wants to stick to the evil that was embedded in the Constitution in terms of our separation of who's people and who isn't.
Yeah. I think we were much more creative as a country before original intent kind of became the unwritten but just assumed law of the land. And the book talks about when that gets introduced, and you can see the difference before and after. And sort of an example solution that I would see on this would be, if we wrote it into the Constitution, that the Constitution is intended to change with time and to adapt to what happens, however we do that, be it amendment or be it other things. But if we were add language to the start of the Constitution, to just take that off the table, I think it would make the American people much more creative. So,
I like it.
all right, let's do a vote in the chat. So yes, if you like original intent as our top problem, and no, if you want to move it back down. And you just type it in chat. And you got 2 yeses so far. We got a no. Is that a yes, Arnie?
Yes.
For number 1? Okay.
I'm curious why Barbara would say no. I could be convinced to change.
All right, the votes are to leave it in place, but I also like to hear dissent. So Barbara, if you wanted to come off mute or type into chat your thoughts on that, please do. And if you do type it out, then I will be happy to read it out for everybody else.
There I am. I just think that trying to amend the Constitution every 50 years would be a real hard thing to get done. I just really think we need to stick with the amendment process.
Did you think that's fair?
It's a good argument. It's something to think about for sure.
Yeah. So I think, what about this as far as like maybe our next topic of conversation, building off of that? So the idea of amendment versus constitutional convention. One of the things that scares me about a constitutional convention is that it all depends on kind of who's in power. And I would go all the way back to the writing of the original Constitution, because people who were in power to write the Articles of Confederation before it was rewritten, were very biased, and white male European landowners, and the majority of them were slave owners. I think it was the majority. And so a lot of that stuff was there and written into it. And at the Constitutional Convention, they had to compromise on a lot of different things in order to get the number of votes that they needed to do. And it happened that Alexander Hamilton introduced a whole new form of government and completely replaced the Articles of Confederation. Now, his version didn't take. I think it was James Madison's version, which was the one that was eventually built upon. But even that was, picked apart, and a lot of things were taken back out again, and going en masse with a full replacement, it scares me. Like even here in this debate, let me ask one more thing because I know I'm talking too long. Even in this debate, like I like debating two things at a time, or like one thing at a time, or its position of it. I feel it gives us a much more focused conversation.
I would argue, just to say it very, very briefly, the anti-federalists have been proved right. The Federalists won. The anti-federalists have been proved right.
Mm.
Thomas Paine is my hero.
I've been thinking about, I'll put this on the table because I'm still processing it. The original, as we know from previous book clubs, the original Articles of Confederation were more prominently based upon the Haudenosaunee Confederation. It's hard to not use the word Confederation or Confederates in the United States anymore without representing civil war. But I wonder sometimes if we had stayed closer to the Haudenosaunee approach instead of going to federalism, what this country would be like.
I think the core of the Haudenosaunee was collaborative problem solving.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's another possible way of creating change. There's a book coming out on June 6th by Ted Stromer called A History of American Resistance. And,
Oh yeah, you mentioned that last time we met. I put it on my list. When is it coming out again?
June 6th.
Okay.
And I think Tad would argue that when we are so blocked by the inability to create change through the amendment process, and we're very difficult to create a conventional process, that maybe what we need is mass resistance. I would throw out, for Pete particularly to think about, there's another possibility given current day technology, which gives me great hope and scares the hell out of me at the same time, and that's using contemporary technology to go to direct democracy. Let we the people vote.
So Pete, can you talk a little bit more about number 2 and what that is that seems to make you nervous?
Sure. So we saw with Project 2025 that there are plans that have been laid out. Another plan that I have seen portions of and that I've heard about is that there are several folks in the Federalist Society that are waiting for a constitutional amendment to happen, or a constitutional convention to happen, because they want to come in and wholesale replace with, and they've got a set of plans, but which does not seem so conspiracy theory anymore after, there was this talk about a plan for Project 2025, and then 2025 came around, and now they've been implementing the things on the plan. There is a plan out there, and I do not put it past any of these groups to not have their own plan. And so for me, amendment is safer, tackling a thing at a time, than a convention, which if you get enough votes in a convention, just as we did with the first constitutional convention, you can just lift out the whole thing and replace it with somebody else. And as long as you have the majority of the votes, you have to go through ratification, I guess. But we didn't even do that with this constitutional convention. They changed the rules of ratification in order to get it passed, and that pissed off a lot of people. And the same thing could happen again.
Pete, I would strongly agree with you, and in the manuscript that I'm working on, I make a very strong, I think a very strong argument that what 2025 proposes is directly linked to the Madisonian position in creating the Constitution.
You mean Project 2025?
Project 2025 is a modern expression of Madison's position.
How so?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I didn't make that connection.
We have born with equal rights, but with different talents and ambitions. Out of different talents and ambitions, some people will rise and equality will be produced, and that's okay. There's a danger, however, because if people are passionate as well as reasonable, that the majority who feel left behind will come together and as in Shays' rebellion, create a tendency for the tyranny of the majority. So in order to protect the talent, the talented tenth, or whatever that number would be, I took that up from Black history, not from our white history. In order to prevent the tyranny of the majority, we need the checks and balances to control the passions of the people, slow down their ability to make change in Congress, and to keep the privileges of the ambitious and talented in place, because the economy is more important than society and politics.
I'm with you on those points, and I'm missing the connection to Project 2025, because I feel like that was the vision of a few using the political constructs to impose it on the many, which I think is what you were arguing against. So I don't think Project 2025 is a vision of the Madisonian approach.
Oh, you don't think it's an attempt by the minority to maintain control?
No.
I do. We differ. I think 2025 is a disaster.
I think maybe for me, it's also that, Madison was at the core of putting together the first 5 amendments. And things that seem very intention for Project 2025. Like, I feel like Madison was trying to protect against getting enough votes to take over, to force your will, because that was the thing that they were experiencing with. But I didn't feel like he was using that process to maintain the control of the few.
Is that what you think that 2025 is doing, control by the few?
Yes.
And I think that's what Madison was doing also. I think he had to. I think he had to give in to Paine to some extent, because Paine was the most powerful force in Virginia. Madison wanted to become president, and Paine stood in his way. So he cooperated with Paine to the extent to which he could advance his political career.
Oh, interesting. All right. So now we need your book to come out, so we can do that for book club.
Yeah, that's right.
From your voice to the editor's ear.
All right. Any other thoughts on? So my proposal here is convention is a larger problem than amendment.
Can I ask you?
Process.
Can I ask? I guess just clarification on your stance there. So, you related it to Project 2025. Again, I'm no expert on either topics, but so Project 2025 and it being played out, or parts of it or many parts of it being played out or pushed through, is being pushed through a very limited number of people, right? Whether it's the executive or whatever. But as a convention, assuming a lot of people involved and fair representation, it seems like that would be much better. I know you mentioned the Federalist Society or some other rogue group coming in and replacing the Constitution wholesale. But does that assume some level of corruption, that there wouldn't be fair representation within the convention?
Yes.
If you replace, if a rogue group is able to replace the whole Constitution.
Yes. And Arnie, correct me if I'm wrong on this, because you probably know better than I do, but according to the current rules, the attendees to the Constitutional Convention would be voted on by the state legislatures. And the state legislatures are fully gerrymandered, and dealing with all the voting problems that we have. They are very biased in many different directions. And I think that has led to a lot of the problems of the governance being disconnected from the will of the people right now. That if those people then were the same people to go to the convention, where they have even more power to completely rewrite the entire system, I see that as danger. I'll say it on the flip side, which is that if a constitutional convention was from a randomly selected number of citizens, regardless of party, or anything like that, then I probably would trust that convention to kind of work things out if it had some good systems, or at least more than one appointed by the state legislatures.
Okay. So you're saying, based on the way the current rules are set up for a constitutional convention, the same problems that we see in government right now would exist within that convention.
Yeah, through the whole convention itself.
Gotcha. Okay, cool, thanks.
I just Googled Project 2025. Presidential Project is a political initiative published in April of 2023 by the Heritage Foundation with the goal of reshaping the U.S. federal government by consolidating executive power in the favor of right-wing policies. Constitutes a policy document that suggests specific changes to the federal government, a personnel database for recommending visiting loyal staff in the federal government, and a set of proposed executive orders for the U.S. president to implement policy.
Yeah.
So,
which in many ways is also very aligned with Hamilton's approach, because he wanted a for life elected, king, ruler.
yeah, like I said, there's a through line between the Hamilton-Madisonian protection of the elites and right through to 2025. And this is a project that has certainly become increasingly obvious since Walter Lippmann's book in 1937, and the Reagan presidency brought it more forward. And I argue it in my manuscript that I don't want to say it here, but that even Obama and Clinton were neoliberal light. For Obama, I would say, perhaps the bailing out of the failing financial institutions while leaving the rest of us in the lurch, as an example of the same kind of philosophy of protecting the economy and the elite over the democracy and the well-being of the people. I guess that's the way I would most clearly say it, that we've so elevated the importance of the economic institution in American society and the measures that we use, like inflation and unemployment, to talk about the health of the economy, that we've neglected the dignity and well-being of the people.
Mm. All right. We've been going for a while on this topic, so I'll probably call a end to this, and let's go ahead and vote. So my proposal is that convention is number 2 over amendment, as far as the more important problem.
I would agree. Yep.
I agree.
All right. Feel free to put yes or no into chat if you are not able to come off mute.
Yes.
All right. And Brandon is abstaining.
And I would add, just because I'm just thinking about it now, I would add putting resistance over convention.
Resistance.
How so, Arnie?
I think if we're going to save democracy, if we're going to bring it back to we the people, then the protests of 50-55, what's the other group? It's the indivisible, are protest movements, and they're not going to get anything done. They're just protesting what's happening, but they're not building the political clout that the civil rights movement built it back in the 50s and 60s that forced Johnson to do something done. I think we need to move to resistance. We need to start doing the kinds of things that we need to force the issue. And what the anti-federalists were not ready to force the issue. The Federalists were way more organized than they were, and even when the Anti-Federalists got a chance to win, they gave up before they should have. I think we need something at least as powerful as the resistance movement of the '60s, and even more so, because we're moving very rapidly into this surveillance state where they collect information from us, and we become rentiers, paying rent to Amazon or these other online facilities, and they've gotten rid of the local beats in the newspapers, and the corporate heads that are providing the money to elect the representative Congress have now taken over the Washington Post, the New York Times, and the Wall Street Journal. Time is short.
Mm-hmm. I think, yeah, good problem statements, but maybe not constitutional convention.
Yeah,
Constitutional problem statements.
no.
I want to look to like Barbara or Laura for the next proposal.
Well, I don't think you're going to even get amendments without resistance.
Without resistance?
I agree.
Right.
So maybe that is the next proposal?
Sounds like it. So how would we state this? So I think that's an E, isn't it? No, I had it right the first time.
Right.
All right. So the problem statement of this, which is,
Excuse me while I get another cup of coffee. I got up at 4 this morning.
and yeah, and feel free to toss out. So if you want to say some more, Barbara, about what this means to you, and then I can fashion a statement out of that.
Well, I agree with the gentleman that was talking about the importance of now. I'm currently reading a book called Goliath Curse, and it's very depressing. And it just really makes me very concerned about where we are now, and I do think that it's going to take quite a bit of resistance to turn this around. And I do wonder if, the more people that are, in my view, how many of us there really are, and resistance would help determine that also. Can you actually get people to resist? And I think that's the first step.
Mm-hmm.
Barbara, I agree. If you haven't done this yet, Tad Stromer, TADSTOERMER, is on Patreon. He's on YouTube. He teaches at the University of Southern Denmark, and he's a public historian at Johns Hopkins. You can watch him on a daily basis. His book, like I say, is coming out June 16th, The History of Resistance in the United States. And I would suggest that we put it on our reading list for sometime down the road.
And may I ask a question? Because I think this is great. Thank you for bringing this up, Barbara. I like the fact that you just changed this to passivity, right, to the existing rules, Pete.
Cool.
Because I think resistance can be sometimes a loaded word, right? So sometimes, right? Yeah, I can see Arnie's like nodding. So sometimes resistance can be in the form of physical action. Sometimes it can just be in the form of words. Sometimes it can be in the form of inaction, right? So there's a lot of different ways I think resistance can be interpreted. So I think passivity in some ways kind of encapsulates a little bit of what we're talking about, but I know we had touched on this teeny bit, and again, going back to the book we've been talking about, this, Ted Stormer book that's coming out, where do we cross a line between, sort of more violent resistance versus more passive resistance. So I think this is a really good point to bring up.
Let me add to what Stromer's doing as a public historian. He's not doing anything political. He's talking about, he's a historian of the lived experience of the people in the time in which they lived. So if there were resistors, who were they? Why did they resist? How did they resist? What work did they do? What did they get done? What worked and what didn't? He's not taking positions. He's just saying, if you want to understand history, you really have to understand it from the position of the people who lived it, and not from some nationalist, patriotic kind of thing that Ken Burns, for example, does.
Yeah, thanks for that, Arnie. That helps a lot.
That's what's in my head. And I forget, Barbara, if you've been to some of these before and you understand what I'm doing here. So I feel like I want to explain it for you if it needs to be, or for the video. So the format is based upon description of the problems versus solutions. And so the solution is the resistance, or taking part in that. That is a description of a way of solving this problem. And so I'm trying to, as a group here, identify what's the thing we want to leave behind. What's the thing that causes the problem? So even if we do something and it goes away and then it comes back, we can recognize it when it comes back.
Mm-hmm. I'm very glad to have found this group, and this is my first time.
Awesome. I'm glad to have you here.
Now you're in your book, Barbara. You can tell us a little bit more about it.
Well, it's very poorly written and very hard to get through, but he goes through the history of the rise and decline and collapse of empires, and he doesn't just do Rome, he does all through history. And basically his main concern is that we're in a critical spot here in the United States now, that if we are not able to reverse where we're going now, the United States itself could collapse.
Yeah, who's the author and what's the title?
Let me get the book.
Yeah, let me get it. Let me see, I'll put it in the chat.
Can
you put it in the chat?
Yeah, I got the first word, but I didn't catch the second when she had mentioned it. Because I did the same thing. I was like, oh, what book is that? Because I'll put it on my list.
Yeah.
It's
So
called
Pete,
Goliath First by Luke Kemp, K-E-M-P, and he's also on YouTube.
Oh, Goliath's Curse by Luke Kemp. Okay, I got it.
Great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you.
Just what else to read.
It came out in 2025, so it's very recent.
The History and Future of Societal Collapse. Okay.
Oh, wonderful.
All right. Goliath's curse. Okay. So we got resistance. What position do you want to put this in, Barbara? Do you think this is a bigger problem than a wholesale convention? Or even a bigger problem than original intent? Or lower? I think you said it was above amendment.
I think it's an immediate problem.
Hmm.
All right. So if we kept, I'll test this on the way down. So if we kept original intent and we tried, and people were still trying to keep to the original intention of the writers of the Constitution, we had
I'm objecting to the original intent.
I know, I'm testing Barbara's position statements.
Okay.
Yeah. So if passivity goes into the first place, we're saying that, it's okay to live with original intent. It's okay to live with the constitutional conventions and the difficult amendment process as long as we're not passive.
No,
This is Barbara's proposal.
Okay, I'm sorry.
So is that what you're saying, or is that not what you're saying? Or do you want to move it down?
Repeat. I'm not sure I understood what you said.
Sure. So our general phrase, to repeat that just for the clarification, is ideally we're going to try to solve all of these problems. But if we can't, the order tells us what's more important. And so we have to ask ourselves when prioritizing and saying, if we put this as number one, then we're saying we are willing to live with 2, 3, 4, and 5 as long as we are not passive. And if we can't say that, if we're saying something like, I can't live with 2 or 3, even if we end up being passive, like if we got rid of something else, that would be more important than overcoming passivity, then we need to move it down. But it's your choice.
How did amendment get to be number 4? I don't quite understand that.
So in the context of this, of the conversations on it, so I had made the case that a wholesale replacement of the system is a bigger danger than amendment. So even if
So we're listing danger?
Yes, we're listing problems. We're listing problems within the system that are the most important problems to solve.
Let me take a shot at it.
Sure.
We have a problem, and the problem is that we're losing our democracy to authoritarianism and state terrorism. Amendment process is not likely to work. Conventions are not likely to work. We have to and the reason is because we're blocked by original intent, which keeps us from renewing the Constitution as a living thing. So the only thing that's available to us to overcome original intent, the ineffectiveness of amendments and conventions, is to get out there and resist.
And that passivity results in all the rest of these things.
Right.
Yes. If Barbara agrees.
I do.
All right. Anybody want to make a case differently? Or in support?
I'm sold. Thanks, Barbara.
Mhm.
Yes, that was helpful.
Yeah. I think you've sold me as well. So Barbara and Arnie, like together, you put together a very compelling thing, which is that if we just passively trust the system, it's going to be nearly impossible to fix the other ones.
Is now the time when we should collectively sing the Marseillaise?
Now, I separate this from how we implement it, or how we solve this problem. There's many different ways to not be passive. including, like passive resistance. The point is is the resistance, the point, and there's different ways to tackle that. But yeah, if you sit back and say, oh, there's nothing I can do, nothing's ever going to change.
Can I suggest that the most effective thing that we, as a group of who we are right here, can do to be effective is to build the membership and the network and the strength of the network of the Maryland Forward Party, and to push Andrew Yang and the other leaders to get out there and start talking and doing.
Yeah. This is, I'll just speak for myself here. It's one of the reasons why I am more active. I've always followed politics, but I am participating in it now because somebody's got to. And the more of us that do, the more that we can shape the system in the way that helps everybody. And I think I've told people my start with why statement, which is building a future where we all want to live.
Right.
Yes.
And I am willing to be not passive to make that future come about.
Okay.
Could I revise that? Building a future where those of us that think alike can live, and maybe a few people should not.
You could have that as your own why statement, but that's not going to be mine.
No, that's not mine either.
Okay. All right.
It sounds like the world that a lot of people want to build is like, I want to build a future for myself and the people who think like me,
No.
and the rest of them can figure it out.
No.
Yeah,
That was thick
exact
sarcasm. Okay, gotcha, Arnie.
Yeah, I think that was an Arnie sarcasm moment. Barbara.
Okay, I'd like to recommend another book.
Okay.
It's called The Pursuit of Liberty by Jeffrey Rosen. And
He's good.
And it's how Hamilton versus Jefferson ignited the lasting battle over power in America.
That's a great subtitle.
And I'd also like to recommend these books I'm reading in 2 other groups. So I suggest that each of you look into those groups yourselves, and that might be a way to engage people of like who are thinking the same way. Because obviously these groups that I'm reading these books in also are leading in this type of issue.
Right.
And so the groups are?
The Pursuit of Liberty is the Orlando Stoics. Oh, Gothic Curse I have to look up. I don't remember which group is doing that. I belong to a million group.
Well, you need to belong to a million and one. I just posted the link to my Substack newsletter.
All right. Let's take a vote on resistance. Resistance is number 1. Go ahead and put it in the chat.
Can't find the chat. Where's the chat?
Probably along
Down in the bottom of the middle.
Yeah, it should be
Yes.
a couple of talk bubbles.
Yeah, I'm on my phone and it works different. I should be on
Oh,
my
yeah.
phone. Yeah.
Yeah, it
Okay,
does.
here's yes.
All right, so we got a yes. It's Barbara's proposal to begin with, but usually it doesn't always go that way. All right, and Laura escaped just in time for the vote. All right, but we have a winner. So resistance is in position 1. All right. Anybody else have a burning thing? I got one that I want to propose. and I'm getting meta on this, but I mean this very sincerely, that I think the core of this is that when we pass laws based on solutions to say, you must do this, I feel like that causes all the rest of the other things that are here, which is it nails it down to a particular thing that should happen, which may not make sense in some contexts, which may not last the test of time, which may have been intentionally written in a way to manipulate the outcome through false pretenses. But I feel like one of the core reasons why we have so much trouble we have right now is the ability for people to write down in wording and say, this is how you must do this, and if you don't do it this way, I am going to come after you and penalize you, take money from you, put you in jail. And it's the difference between, like, you shouldn't kill somebody and, you know, then getting into, started off that's a bad one of, like, getting into, the core of the problem is not taking away somebody else's life, you know, unwillingly. Or let's flip it around and say, let's, you know, if the pronouncement is you cannot kill, and then we have the things of, like, assisted suicides and people who want to end their lives, and that's not possible, you know, and we've taken away the choice that people have because we've written it in a way that is now written in stone until we get an amendment or until we get something else. And I see solution-based lawmaking as a core of a manipulative process. So I'll start there.
Can I ask? Can I ask a question once I have it? No,
Yeah, you should,
so
yes, you may ask a question once you have a question.
I'm trying to find the words.
Yeah.
So does that mean there would be less need of resistance if we were better problem solvers?
Yes.
Or if we focus on problem solving rather than what we have out there now?
I think this gets into, so the fact that there are existing rules of the system that create hopelessness and fosters policy, I believe is driven by the fact that we write our rules as thou shalt not, rather than solving a problem. Here's the problem that needs to go away in whatever way makes sense to solve it the best for your place, your community, for your people.
Not quite clear to me, Pete.
Okay. It's good practice for me to try to get better.
I think it's a good argument. Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely good food for thought. I'm still wondering if the resistance to the current situation is still needed to get to a place where we can do what you're suggesting and focus on problem solving. I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm. Let me say it this way, and I also do need to come up with a better problem statement. It's hard to write out the problem statement when you're the one giving it. If we overcame passivity and were, you know, resisted the existing rules of the system in order to align with the will of the people, and what we did was we instituted a new set of rules based on our understanding of the system right now, I feel like that's what they actually did with the original intent. Like, they wrote a set of rules based upon what life was like 250 years ago. And we will do the same thing. So if the only thing that we can do is write a set of rules, you will do this, you must do that in this format, and dictate all the details of how that solution is to be defined, I believe that we will create a brand new system that 50 years from now, 100 years from now, our opposite way, our descendants will be fighting against.
Pete,
Because time has changed.
That's why Jefferson and some of the other founders said the constitutional amendment process or the convention process should be every generation, every 15 years one set, every 19 years another set.
Yeah.
I see the problem you're talking about, and our posterity should not be guided by the dead hand of the past.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
When I
It's got to overcome the current way the courts are looking at original intent. We need to see it not as what we think the founders said, but in terms of how we write it today for our time.
Yep.
For changed circumstance.
If it helps, I write it in my blog is Democracy Thinking, and the way I write it there is that monarchy thinking extends from this idea of like, let's find the best person or the best people, and then they will tell us what to do. And I think a lot of everything that we've had since then, even our version of representative Republican democracy right now, not Republican but Republican versus participatory democratic, Greek versus Roman.
If I heard you right, that's one of the biggest mistakes Madison made in thinking that the people would be wise enough to pick leaders of virtue.
Yeah.
How has that worked out?
Yeah. Yeah. And as soon as you elevate somebody, this is what I think is the problem that came out of the Senate in a reaction to the Greek democracy of direct democracy, is that you chose a special ruling class that didn't go home, that didn't do anything else, that made all of their money and all of their living out of just passing laws and passing rules. And so in order to keep their jobs, they had to just keep writing more rules and deciding whatever everybody else should do, otherwise they would have no job to do. And that creation of a ruling class that is supposed to make decisions for everybody else, I think is at the core of our problems.
I think you're moving to an important thing that since we've agreed on resistance, then while you're in the process of resistance, we need to be considering what you're talking about, because there's no point to resist unless you're ready to act if the resistance is successful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's a little bit, so like I also fear like there are groups that are forcing, I'll take this in the cases of, we've got a bunch of people going through, let's take Minnesota, for example, that are very, like, they are doing number two. They are not being passive. They are taking a resistant stance to immigration, and they are breaking the rules of the current system in order to make their version of the world a reality, and they're succeeding.
Barbara's got her hand up.
Oh, I thought that was still up from before, but...
Yeah, I need to take it down. I'm sorry.
Oh, no worries. For every example of positive resistance, I think there's also negative resistance. And so how we pursue governance after getting rid of the passivity and taking control of how we govern ourselves is, to me, the bigger problem, so that we don't just replace one set of rules with another.
I think I'm thinking I'm speaking for you. I think instead of a set of rules, we're concerned with setting a bunch of collaborative problem solving and conflict management processes.
Yeah. Yep. And that gets into specific solution, and I'm putting this into the problem statement of, but yeah, I think there are several different ways to be problem solvers, but in any way of being a problem solver is a better approach than being a solution implementer disconnected from a problem. That's what it is. I think it's kind of like that. I could still refine it more, but when the definition, that's what it is, of the solutions are more important than the problems they are intended to solve, we create a new round of oppression. So, and this is so ingrained in us. You know, the idea of law goes all the way back to the tongue of the king in prehistoric times.
Is it possible to offer two new problem sets?
To offer two new problem sets. You mean add some more problems to the list?
Yes.
Sure. If we're done with discussion on this one and we want to take a vote.
Okay. Number one, what do we do to increase resistance?
Oh, sorry, but we have to take a vote first.
I'll take a vote. Okay.
Yeah. So, have I convinced people is problem solving, or focus on problem solving over solutioning more important?
Nah, I'm stick with resistance.
Okay.
We got to resist before we can problem solve.
So Arnie's a no. We might have lost others. Brandon's a no. And Barbara's on the list twice.
I like everything you Pete. Sorry, I like everything you said, Pete. I just I think I would need more time to convince myself.
All right. How do people feel about problem solving in second place?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Matter of fact, let me rephrase it. That once resistance becomes successful, one needs to have a strategic plan in place to solve the problems. There's no point winning the resistance and not being ready to implement something that'll solve the problems that we're trying to solve.
All right. Okay. So I think we at least have 3 votes there for yes. So we'll put problem solving in number 2. Cool. All right, Arnie, go for it.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah, I was going to say, yeah. Once we resist, we need consensus.
You're starting to chop up a little bit more. I don't know if that.
I said once if and when resistance becomes successful, we need to be ready with the problem-solving process to move ahead.
Yes.
Too often at the end of resistance, there's nothing left, and there's more problems. Consider the end of the French Revolution. They got rid of the problem. So what? Then they got Napoleon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll back that up. You know, often when I'm talking about the problems, prioritized problems debates, you know, I'm highlighting the problems because they are often not talked about. But highlighting a problem without also discussing solutions is also not helpful.
Let me throw in a pitch for the book I'm working on at this point, because if we don't have the critical multidisciplinary tools applied to historic factors and patterns, then you don't recognize the end, that you're in the beginning, end, or middle of the cycle, and you're not prepared to act in ways that that create the change that's required. And so throughout history, people have floundered, and that they've invented new solutions that don't work because they have what I'm, so the title of my book is Overcoming Historical Amnesia, with the subtitle is it's not that we've forgotten history, we never learned it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we're doing with this series of books focused on our founding documents and how they're influencing us today.
Yeah. That's one of the things I've liked about our choices for the book club. There's been a lot of different things that just didn't know about. You know, and then we go into look at it and we're like, oh, yeah, people were already talking about this back then. And we're relearning the same struggles.
Yeah, and in this book, you saw the seeds of certain movements and the seeds of certain change at the very beginning, but they didn't happen, or either they haven't happened yet, or they didn't happen for decades or centuries later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. We got a really good list here. Anybody else want to put in anything or recommend moving anything around?
Hey, so sorry, I went off camera because I'm eating. I've just been listening a little bit, and I'm observing something which I think is interesting, because I'm hearing resistance being used as a very much of an action word versus the other things not being so much action word oriented, right? So when we're talking about original intent or convention or amendment, sort of getting more to a root cause versus action. Because I happen to be, and I know I'm a little late on this, but I happen to be in the camp that thinks that passivity can be a form of resistance, right? Like in the interminable words of Geddy Lee of Rush, if you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice, right? You know, there's something that happens there. And I'm not saying I completely disagree with it. I'm not at a point that I would debate that. But I'm hearing resistance being discussed as an action and not necessarily a problem.
And I'm so glad you brought this up, because I've been wrestling with that a little bit. Okay, so I was yeah, I'm really glad you brought this up, because I was looking at it, at least from the definition that's written there, as a lack of activism. That's the way I was thinking about it.
Yes.
So,
Yeah,
So
I don't think resistance is passive. I think Gandhi and that kind of view of passive resistance can be useful.
Yeah.
But getting out in the streets and getting in the face of negative actions and taking risks. Malcolm X invited me to go to Missouri during spring break to live with a family, a black family. And I was ready to go. And all of my friends, all of my advisors pleaded with me not to go. And they weren't sure. And I've forgotten the name, the three were killed in that same week. And the lesson that I've carried from that is guilt. There is more grief from my not going if I had gone.
the Laura. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, and
Arnie,
you might be
I wasn't sure if you
getting
were
too far from the mic again, Arnie. So it's chopping in and
It
out.
was a good story, though, very powerful.
Yeah.
So, Laura, were you not thinking? And again, I don't want to assume. Were you not looking at it as a lack of activism?
I guess I think of resistance in a lot of different forms. And I think Arnie kind of caught on to it a bit, even though, he gave a story where it was sort of a more of, I think of it maybe not as resistance as much as engagement, right? And maybe that engagement may be in different forms, right? You may engage in a way where you are more actively vocal and you're verbalizing and you're out in the streets versus somebody who might be sitting behind a computer screen and just doing something, or somebody who is petitioning their governor, right? Like, I don't want to be, I guess I'd be concerned about assuming that resistance is always just sort of this very strong format. Because I like the fact that Barbara brought this up and, that Arnie's really supportive of it. And I agree with it. I think there might just be a different.
Laura, can I give you a good example?
Yeah.
Thomas Paine writing Common Sense.
Yeah. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Turn the tide.
Mm-hmm.
It also helped me recognize that for the first two items, the titles, I always put the titles in the capitals, but the problem statement is the most important thing. But I had changed the titles to be the opposite.
Yeah, I think what you're saying there is like passivity, right? So resistance, I don't think was the right word. I think it does sort of formulate the same thing Barbara was trying to express, that you disengage, but you don't need to necessarily be overly resistant either. So that's just.
I disagree. I would keep resistance. Passive resistance is a form of resistance. There can be a passive resistance for sure, but resistance is the act form of it. And the penultimate is that at certain points in time, the only thing that's going to be successful is if at the proper pivotal moment you force the issue. You become the catalyst, or you become the force somebody to take the action, which becomes the catalytic action, which turns people from observer or protesting into a resistance movement. A movement for change.
I would say, I would add in, not that I'm describing what either of you two are saying, but adding a new thought on top of it, which is that I think what's important is to have the ability to try multiple solutions. I feel like this debate was very prominent during the Civil Rights Movement. It was like the King, passive resistance versus Malcolm X active resistance. And they had a lot of debates between, should we do one or the other?
I tell you one of the things. Sorry breaking in, but one of the things I would absolutely that active resistance says is get rid of the notion that being part of the loyal opposition is a form of resistance. The buying of the patriot myth, the buying of the nationalist myth, the not understanding that the people that we call the heroes of our founders were all misogynist slave owners and very often rapists. The whole crew, even Ben Franklin, had slaves and did not free them. I do not exist. They were people of their time, because we are people of our time, and I don't excuse myself for my passivity. So I'm very strong for keeping it as resistance, saying that passive resistance is possible. But nationalism, patriotism, loyal opposition, that don't get the job done.
Mm-hmm. Trust the system.
No.
Does not work. Shape the system together, collaboratively.
Yes.
With active or passive resistance or any of a number of different solutions. But what's important is
But you
changing
just
the
said the
system.
word, Pete. You said solutions. Is
Yeah.
passivity really an issue of, is resistance really a solution or is it a problem? I guess that's what I'm just trying to differentiate for myself.
And that's why I changed the word on there, because for some people, resistance would be a problem. For the patriot, movement that Arnie was just describing, resistance is the problem. But I don't think that's what we're saying. I think what we're saying is the passivity and not taking action, whether it be passive or aggressive, the non-action is the problem.
I prefer resistance, the notion that resistance can be passive. I do not like passive as the major word.
So, but if resistance is the thing that you want, then it is a wording thing here, right? Because
Yeah.
it's
Because you want
we're
resistance.
listing problems. We're listing what is the problem. And
Yeah, I'm wondering if it is resistance really the solution. Is that like number
Yes.
Okay.
Resistance is the solution.
number one, and
Passivity is the
resistance
problem.
is the action, right?
Okay,
Yes.
I can
Because I
accept
agree
that.
with you, Arnie. I do understand what you're saying. I'm just saying I like that word, but I think it's more of the number two step and not necessarily number one.
Okay, I
That's
got
how we would resolve passivity, is through resistance.
Yes.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Okay,
I don't know if this helps. Oh,
the
sorry, go ahead.
process works.
I don't know if this helps, but Pete also used another word that I'm wondering if we should replace with passivity or replace passivity with, because we also are saying passive resistance. So Pete used the word inaction. I didn't know if that was better as the problem for passivity, but because you all were also using the term passive resistance.
Yeah.
So I didn't know if inaction would be better. I don't know, just the thought, but we can keep it the way it is. I think everybody's on the same page now, maybe. I don't know.
I think it's great that we've just spent over an hour and a half and we're still on rule number one.
Well, it is the most important rule.
It is.
Or the most important problem.
But it actually took 250 years to get here. I'm just joking.
But actually, it's one of the things I like about this format and this discussion, is that we started off talking about amendments, and then we went to conventions, because those are the two methods of solutions that have been used over the 250 years. But when we kept going and kept going, we found that there were bigger problems to solve than even conventions and amendments. You're on mute there.
Yeah, the conventions and amendments were solutions, but now they're problems.
Yeah. Which goes back to my thing, the definition, if you replace a problem with a solution that then causes the next problem, did you really solve the problem? So, because like the Articles of Confederation within the U.S. version of it had problems, and then it was replaced with the Constitution, which has problems.
I think we could make an argument. This might be something we want to talk about down the road. I think I could make a very good argument that the Articles of Confederation, in fact, were better than the Constitution we ended up with. There were more states' rights.
Mm-hmm. I could probably make
Yes, you could.
an argument in that favor as well, and that, going back to the Dagan-Weta part, which we are said already, which is that it's the listening and the collaboration which makes a difference. And the early Articles of Confederation didn't have the listening and the collaboration, which is one of the reasons that they failed, not because it was a confederation, but because they used the Confederate rules in order to maintain their biased way of life.
Yeah.
Don't tell me what to do in my state.
Yep. How long has it been since I read Hovel on Hope?
I think it was in the last one last month. It's a great poem, though. You want to do it again?
Yeah. Hope. Either we have it within us or we do not. It's a dimension of the soul and is not essentially dependent on some particular observation of the world. Hope is an orientation of the spirit, an orientation of the heart. It transcends the world that is immediately experienced, anchored somewhere beyond the horizon, in the deep invested enterprises that are obviously headed for an early success, but rather an ability to work for something because it's good, not because it stands a chance to succeed. Hope is definitely not the same as optimism. It's not the conviction that something will turn out well, but certainly that something makes sense regardless of how it turns out. It is hope above all which gives us the strength to live continually, to try new things. Read that every morning, and I make sure I don't memorize it because I want it to hit me anew every day.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I just went through my first constitutional convention, so.
Oh, really? Tell us.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Here. Yeah.
Here. Yeah.
Yes.
Brand new.
All right. Shall we wrap up the evening? We're getting close to our 8:30 close time. And talk about what book we want to do for next month. Or depending on how big it is, maybe like we did with this one, maybe we need to stretch it out.
Did we have anything on the list? Like, I know we've thrown out some books before.
Yeah.
We might want to do that History of Resistance, Arnie, when that comes out, right?
Yeah,
You know, Barbara.
in June, so we do it in July or August.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things that Brandon and I ran a book club before this Minotaur book club, and we kept a list. And the only thing that happened is the list kept getting bigger and bigger, bigger. And so, yeah, I tend to not keep lists of books necessarily anymore. And then I feel like the right people are here to have a conversation. We're here. What do we want to talk about next? Let's just go ahead and pick it. And then if other people show up, they get to pick it at the next meeting.
I'm checking I have a list and it's huge and I never get to half the stuff, right?
I know, right?
All over the place.
So Barbara's got a couple on the list. There's the Goliath. There's the Pursuit of Liberty.
I've got my resistance history of the U.S., but I've not. Let's see.
Oh, that's Stomers.
That's Stromer's, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So again, the goal to stick with the theme, right, of the historical context. Is that for the books?
I would hope so, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
There's a whole string of them. I don't like John Meacham, so I won't recommend him, but Democracy Awakening by Heather Cox Richardson. American Democracy in Crisis, The Case for Rethinking Madison Post-January 6th. Ann Applebaum's The Twilight of Democracy. Tyranny of the Minority by Levitsky. Autocracy Inc. by Ann Applebaum, and The Hidden History of American Oligarchy by Tom Hartman. Some of the ones on my list. I can post those up. I'll send them to you, Pete.
I can read them off again. I'll put them into search. I was looking at the things in my wish list, but I didn't have a good set. So give me one title.
Okay, let me go back. Democracy Awakening by Heather Cox Richardson. Twilight of Democracy by Ann Applebaum.
Oops, that's not what I meant to do. And Applebaum, you said what was the title? Twilight of Democracy.
Yeah, I was just reading a blurb about Democracy Awakening, because it was the first one I just put in. And it's just interesting, but given our last conversation about passivity and resistance, it says here, the blurb says, democracy is not a static institution, but a living, evolving process that requires constant vigilance and participation. That sounds interesting.
That's good for me.
All right. Did you find anything else on your list, Laura?
No, I did not. I found Susan Isger, but hers is more about the Supreme Court. I don't know if anybody listens to her. She tends to be a little more of a conservative, but I just like her to give me a little bit more of a different view, and she's extremely smart. So I sometimes listen to her on her podcasts. And I know she's got a new book out. She may not have released it yet, though. I like this Democracy Awakening, but I have to admit, I did not take a look at all the other books. Goliath's Curse. Let me take a look at that one too.
Yeah, that sounds interesting.
The description. So I appreciate having Barbara's feedback on this of like, it is not well written, but the concept looks fantastic.
A collapse of human societies from the Bronze Age to the modern era. 324 case studies.
How many pages is it?
592. Sometimes that does dictate.
Yeah. We just went through a double on We the People because it was so large. I'm not sure we can sustain another gigantic book again.
Yeah. We can put it on the list, but maybe it's like the next one, right?
Yeah.
Wait for mine, Laura. I do the same thing in 180 pages.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
Democracy Awakening. It's how many pages that one is?
All right. So Arnie's editor. We want the book to be released so we can put it into the book club.
Let's see. Democracy Awakening is listed as 304 pages.
Okay. How many pages was Lepore?
She was over 700, but that's all. We all have to consider there's tons of notes, right?
Yeah.
And the bibliography.
And the bibliography, but that was a heftier one. That's why it took us.
Yep.
And I
feel like if we hadn't gone through as much of Federalist Papers and Anti-Federalists and like gone through the original sources, Pursuit of Liberty would be a really good book, but I wonder if it would be a little bit repetitive for us.
Oh, I don't remember if we did this or not. If we didn't, I would argue strongly for the Anti-Federalist Papers.
We did pull those in on our third. We did two months of Federalists, and then we did Anti-Federalists as a contrast.
But did we actually read it? The book?
I don't know if we went fully into all of the Anti-Federalist papers.
Because they were right on everything. Everything they said would happen, happened.
All right. Where are people landing?
I'm going for Democracy Awakening and then maybe follow up with the Goliath book.
Yeah.
Me too.
Laura's suggestion sounds good to me. Yeah. Sounds good.
Yep. Done deal.
All right. Okay. So we're lining up a couple things. Starting with Democracy Awakening and then Goliath's Curse. All right, so March. Let's look at our calendars. Normally we had to shift because I had a meeting on the 12th. Normally we would be March 12th, but that doesn't give us a lot of time to read the book. So we could continue on to the 4th, or we could move it into April and do April 9th. The 4th week. So we could either do March 26th, or we could do April
April 2nd?
We could do April 2nd, we could do April 9th, but we need to give ourselves at least 4 weeks.
I'm open to either.
Yeah, I'm actually pretty open right now, so if anybody else has a,
Actually, let me go for April 9th because I want to be damn sure that I've got my book proposal off to the editor well before then. And
Okay.
that's why I don't want to start reading until the proposal's off my desk within the next 10 days.
I'm okay with that.
April 9th?
April 9th.
April 9th, I blocked it off. Democracy Awakening.
All right. Nice. Cool. Looking forward to it. All right. April 9th is our next book club, Democracy Awakening. I'll get that posted up on the meetup so everybody can sign up for it. And also out on MarylandForwardParty.com. And thank you all for joining in our constitutional convention.
I gotta say, this was the most fun I've had all day. This was good, thank you.
Yeah, this is great.
Awesome.
And welcome again, Barbara.
Yeah, glad you could join us and recommend some good books. And look at that, your suggestion made it to the top. We debated on the naming, but it still made it up there. That's great.
Okay.
Love it. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for participating. Have a great evening.
Thanks for leading this. Yeah, thanks for leading this, Pete. Thanks.
Take care.
Sure.